Lawmakers on Capitol Hill are getting closer to reaching a comprehensive spending package for the rest of fiscal 2026. In the latest step, House and Senate appropriations reached a deal on a new set of spending bills covering financial services, foreign affairs, and national security. The spending plan spares the IRS and the State Department for major cuts and calls on speeding up the disposal of excess federal real estate. Federal News Network's Jory Heckman joins me with more. Jory, great to have you.
Hey, Terry. Great to be here.
This has coverage of your favorite agency, the IRS. What does the spending bill say specifically about them?
What the spending bill means for the IRS is modest spending cuts, but cuts that are not nearly of the magnitude that the Trump administration and House Republicans had previously proposed. We're looking at about a 9% cut from current spending levels. The Trump administration, in its proposal for this fiscal year, it suggested that the IRS should get a 20% spending cut. And so we're seeing, something that's less than half of what the Trump administration ultimately proposed here. The IRS, of course, is dealing with a lot of belt tightening. It saw about a quarter of its workforce leave last year, and it's getting ready for this year's filing season. So, of course, financial resources is also another piece of the puzzle of terms of overall readiness of is it able to meet its obligations on a day-to-day basis. And it's worth pointing out that big picture, the IRS is getting that cut, but the money's getting moved around here. The IRS would see its spending on taxpayer services, the public-facing stuff that you or I depend on to get questions answered from the IRS. That bucket of money goes up. They would spend about $3 billion on taxpayer services. IRS enforcement, the calls you don't want to get from the IRS, that bucket of money is going down. That's about $5 billion, and that's about a $400 million plus cut from enforcement operations. So that's how it's looking at the IRS. And it's worth pointing out here that Democrats on the appropriations committees pointed out that this spending bill doesn't have any of the poison pill provisions that they were pushing back against. And among them was a provision that would prevent the IRS from ever rolling out its own free online filing system, akin to direct file, but that's a glass half full, glass half empty situation because, of course, the IRS is not running its direct file program anymore. That's the platform that it's been running for about 2 years now, but at this point, the IRS is pulling the plug on that.
So with a 9% overall funding cut, but a 25% workforce reduction, does that mean we can expect the IRS to be hiring?
Well, they have been doing that in recent months. There has been a real push for the IRS to fill positions for manning those call centers, having people around to answer taxpayer calls. In the Trump administration's FY26 budget proposal, they said that they would need to hire about 11,000 call center reps just to maintain the current level of phone support. And if they weren't able to make those kinds of hires, that the level of phone service, the number of calls that people can actually get through to a human IRS employee, that would dramatically drop here. And so we've seen fits and starts of the IRS being able to hire some of these people, but not at the numbers that we've seen and that the IRS itself said are needed to maintain its current level of phone support.
Well, beyond the IRS, this also has coverage of GSA. One of the topics, again, that we've talked quite a bit about is excess federal office space. What kind of provisions are in the spending bill regarding that?
Yeah, so lawmakers are unanimous here on both parties that there's got to be more done from GSA to offload the real estate it no longer wants to maintain and is just in excess. So there's just not enough federal employees working in these offices, that there's opportunities to co-locate agencies, to consolidate people within one building as opposed to 2 or 3 or 4. And so what this proposes is giving GSA access to nearly $10 billion from the Federal Buildings Fund. What that fund is it's just a collection of all the rent checks GSA gets throughout the year from tenant agencies who are occupying space in GSA-owned buildings. And this would go toward new construction in some regards. In some regards, it would go toward rehabilitating the space that GSA already owns. It's facing a multi-billion-dollar backlog in keeping its federally owned buildings in good working order. And, federal employees are quick to document that. That can mean burst pipes at the FBI building, the Hoover building that they are vacating. It can mean situations where federal employees are working in less than ideal situations. And so lawmakers understand you got to spend a little money to save money in the long run. And so they are trying to rehabilitate these buildings and find more opportunities to make good use of the space that GSA wants to own for the long term.
Well, that sounds like a bit of good news, at least. What about the tech side of GSA?
Yeah, GSA, of course, does a lot of things besides real estate, and it's a government-wide player in the IT space, plays a supporting role for other agencies. And there's a couple of call-outs here that are notable. Lawmakers are asking GSA to make .gov websites more accessible. This has been a perennial issue. I think the last time I looked at the data back in 2024, about half of federal websites have at least one issue in terms of 508 compliance under the Rehabilitation Act. These are websites that have issues making it harder for people with disabilities, a whole range of disabilities, from fully accessing the information that are on those websites. So that's one call to action here, and there's money attached to that, fairly modest appropriations of $1.4 million to do that. One other call out GSA has here where there's no money attached is supporting the rollout of AI tools government-wide to enable faster delivery of benefits and services. We can think of a couple of agencies where that has been a persistent call to action. Social Security is one where the leadership there has been saying that AI needs to be a part of them delivering benefits better, faster, cheaper. So GSA is going to be leading that charge government-wide.
And Jory, the third agency that's covered under this set of bills is the State Department, and they've also been a topic of discussion over the past year. Major workforce reductions, real changes in organization. What sort of funding levels will they be getting if these bills pass?
Yeah, so and this is a case where it's interesting what's not happening here. The State Department is not getting a major cut to its spending. It's getting a rounding error budget cut. Basically, a flat budget is the best way to look at it for its operations. And this is all despite the fact that the State Department went through a major reorganization last summer. It laid off about 1,300 employees, and it consolidated and eliminated hundreds of offices as a result of that reorganization, still getting roughly the same amount of money to do everything that it's supposed to do. One notable thing here is that there are some independent agencies that are related to the State Department and the federal government's foreign service mission, agencies that have been called on to be cut to the bone, basically. The Millennium Challenge Corporation, for one, the U.S. Agency for Global Media, which includes Voice of America. These were agencies that were targeted by the Trump administration for basically elimination. Congress says, no, we should continue to fund these programs, and there are regular appropriations for those agencies to continue operating. So this is Congress stepping in and saying, actually, we think these programs are important. We think they should remain, and pushing back, in essence, against the executive branch, saying that they shouldn't be a going concern.
Well, that will be an interesting discussion to watch as the year rolls out. But if we zoom out a little bit, how much work does Congress have still to do before the current continuing resolution runs out at the end of this month?
Given the date on the calendar, still quite a bit to do before the end of the month. Roughly, not quite halfway to its goal of getting all 12 of these appropriations bills passed by the House and Senate. We saw recently that the House did pass the last minibus three-bill package that covered commerce, justice, the Environmental Protection Agency, Interior Department. That now heads to the Senate. This current round of spending bills still needs to go through the House and Senate. And then there are still other bills that we are waiting to see make it out of the appropriations committees. So still quite a bit of work here. And so we may need to see yet another CR, another kick down the road of the proverbial can here. So more to come, but that's where things currently stand.
That's Federal News Network's Jory Heckman. Jory, thanks for the update.
Thanks, Terry.
You can find his story at federalnewsnetwork.com.